favorite Blizzard Wizard Forum MVP, here to show you a little bit of Diablo Reaper of Souls. So I've been working on this lightning build for a little while, and I want to share it with you. The interesting thing about this build is it doesn't require anything special, no specific items or legendary items in order to make it work. But there are some special things about the gear. So I'd like to show you a little bit about the game settings for RoS if you're not familiar with them. There's the campaign mode, which is essentially pretty much like the game that you're playing right now, but in addition there's now an adventure mode, which allows you to do bounties, which are two unique things to RoS, so we'll give you something a little different. In addition, the standard system of monster power has been changed to new difficulty system. There's normal, hard. As you're leveling your characters from 60 to 70, you'll probably do it in expert or master level, and you'll eventually work your way up to Torment level. When you get to Torment level, it allows you to get the Torment level legendary items that are available at level 70. You also get increased gold bonuses and experience bonuses by moving the slider bar here from Torment 1 up to Torment 6. So this build, this lightning build, since there's no special legendary items, no game-changing affixes associated with them, it works best on Torment 1 or maybe Torment 2. Let's go ahead, lock that in, save and close, and start the game. And I'll show you some of the items that I've been collecting over the other two during the beta. Now, as you know, I'm not a hardcore gamer per se, so I'm not spending hours and hours and hours farming the game. Usually just an hour or two at night, kind of on a more casual pace than a lot of others. So these are the types of items that you might expect to get, you know, playing in a casual sort of way. So there are a couple of legendary items that I found. One is the sword. Kind of the special thing about it is that it allows you to have crit hit damage. I had to do a re-roll of one of the kind of junk stats at the Mystic in order to get an open socket so I could have some crit hit damage. There are a lot of legendary items like this one that don't have any game-changing affix, but they do allow you to roll stats like DPS and intelligence that are higher than the rare items that you would normally find. So here's a ring that I found. Intelligence Vitality had a really high crit damage roll, and I was able to re-roll one of the junk affixes for a crit chance, and I kept re-rolling that until I got 6. There's a pair of gloves that I have. I use these kind of as my DPS gloves in this build. They have intelligence and then the trifecta stats, attack speed, which maxes out at 6 in RoS, really high crit damage, and crit chance I re-rolled up to 10. So there's a pair of shoulders that I'll be using. Armor, intelligence, has black hole damage. This is kind of very similar to the monk ability where you cast it and it draws all the enemies in to one specific area. And in this case, when they're drawn in, we're going to rain down meteors on top of them. And when our AP well is empty, then we're going to use electrocute to refill that well. So we're going to be going back and forth between meteors and electrocute in order to make this build work. This is one of the helms that I'll be using. It has intelligence, crit chance, 10 APOC, and also meteor damage. You're going to see these interesting affixes that are based around an ability, such as meteor damage, and they're all going to apply extra damage, and you're going to want to stack these on as many items that you possibly can. I did get a towel chest to drop a couple days ago. So this one has intelligence, vitality. I re-rolled for all res. It of course has the attack speed that you'd expect from a towel chest, and it also has 3 sockets. This is an interesting belt that I found, and it works perfect for this lightning build because it deals 13% more lightning damage. Also has intelligence and vitality, and an extra 10% damage to electrocute, which is the signature spell that we're going to be using. Now in orange is our game-changing affix, although it's not quite exactly game-changing, but it is interesting that whenever you're blocked or you dodged or you hit, you have a chance to discharge bolts of electricity that deal weapon damage as lightning, which that lightning damage is then buffed by all other items. Nothing too special about these pants, although it did take me quite a while to finally find ones that worked. They have intelligence, all res, electrocute damage buffed by 13%, and 2 open sockets, which I use to stack extra all resistance. The boots, intelligence armor, some movement speed, get to increase meteor damage by 14%. That's the other half of the build. So we go to our source. Our source rolls with, it always rolls with damage, of course, and then the 4 primaries in addition to that are intelligence, crit chance, APOC, and electrocute damage. I haven't really found a great legendary ring, so I'm going to use the Hellfire ring. This is the new Hellfire ring, so it's going to roll with much higher main stat rolls than what you're used to in D3V, and it also has a chance to cast a fire ring for weapon damage when attacking. Now, these bracers are pretty cool bracers. These are pretty much about maxed out. Lightning skills, 15%, that's max on that roll. Intelligence and vitality are pretty close to topped out, and of course crit hit chance at 6 is pretty invaluable. And pretty basic amulet here, intelligence, vitality, and then crit chance and damage. Now if we go up to paragon points, we can distribute these in any way we want. Maximum arcane power is what I'm choosing here for the meteor part, just so I can have a bigger well to cast more meteors. And in fact, I have 1 unspent point here for the core attributes, so I'm going to throw another one into arcane power. Also see on the offense tab, I've dumped all of mine into crit hit chance. You can never have too much crit hit chance. The defense tab, this is where I have all of my points stacked for life regeneration. It's really the only place that I have for recovering life. Now, utility tab, I have all of my points dumped into resource cost reduction, just so those meteors are costing 8.4% less than what they typically would. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that, and then look at the abilities that I'm using. One is electrocute chain lightning, so the lightning can jump up to 9 additional enemies, and each of those is going to have a chance to proc paralysis, which is the passive I'll talk about later. Teleport, use safe passage. Black hole, supermassive black hole is going to do 570% weapon damage over 2 seconds, so it's going to pull all the enemies in to the middle, but also deal some damage on its own. Meteor lightning bind. This is a lightning variant of Meteor, which, if it causes a critical hit on impact, will root or stun those enemies for 5 seconds, so it also works for crowd control. Magic weapon electrify, I kind of like just because it buffs your damage, but also allows your lightning to arc to 3 nearby enemies also, so it's more lightning damage. Energy armor prismatic, I'm just choosing some sort of armor spell. Glass cannon works pretty similar to the way that it did previously. Unwavering will, if you stand, it's great for channeling, and electrocute is kind of channeling enough, so when you're standing for 1.5 seconds, it increases your armor and all res and damage. Dominance is one of the shield spells that is new in RoS. The way this works is every time that you kill an enemy, it grants a shield that absorbs about 12,000 damage over 3 seconds. And that's not a lot of damage to absorb when you have 233,000 life that I do, but it can stack 10 times. So if you're in an area that's really dense with a lot of kind of white trash mob enemies, you can get that stacked up really high, and it actually does become a meaningful amount of shield. And of course paralysis, unlike D3V, it actually works. So when you're using electrocute, it will actually proc paralysis and is a very good means of crowd control. So we are going to go ahead and take this build for a spin. So they've redone the maps here in ROS, so instead of just having a list to choose from of the waypoints to go through, you actually see the map and how you would kind of travel throughout the region. So you click on these waypoints now. Let's go ahead and right click. We can now see the whole world of Sanctuary. And let's go to Act 5. And quite a few waypoints here in Act 5, obviously. I'm going to choose here the Ruins of Corvus, which is really interesting place that you can use, and I used a lot for leveling my character from 60 to 70, and I'll show you why. So with bounties, there are usually about, let's go back up to the map, there's always 5 different bounties that you have to fulfill in order to get your reward, which is the Heraldric Cache. And those bounties are usually 5 different things that you have to do. One is always a boss kill, another is some sort of elite pack that'll be somewhere on a map, another one might be completing an event, which you normally would probably skip while you're farming in D3V. But here you have to do it. Same thing with caves. You usually have to go into a cave, usually the second level of a cave, and kill an elite pack in there. And there's usually, like what we see here, a second thing that you have to fulfill, and that's killing 150 enemies, including the elite Naxarag. So let's go ahead and put our energy armor on and put our magic weapon on and see if we can find our bounty. The bounty is randomly on the map somewhere. You have no idea where it is. And especially in Act 5, these maps can get really big. So thankfully, after you've been running around for a while, if you haven't found the bounty, a little yellow arrow will show up on the screen and give you a hint of where you need to go. So the way that this build usually works is you throw out a mass to full, and it brings them all in together, and then you rain down some meteors. And you can see them getting stunned either from electrocute or from the rooting that occurs with lightning bind. So you can see the dominant shield here. Since I've killed a bunch of enemies, that pops up, and you can see the shield amount on the left hand side that tells you how much damage that it can absorb. The thing that you do have to watch out for with black hole is it works on a cooldown. So you can see the cooldown, and you can't be casting it all the time. You have to kind of think and plan ahead a little bit of how you're gonna do things. So here, these little scarabs are great for experience. So when you're leveling up, you know, just dozens and dozens of these, you know, come at you, and you can just kill mobs and mobs of them, and the experience just really racks up. So what you can see here are the little lightning bolts coming out from my belt. You know, they're doing 100% weapon damage, and you know, is that game changing? Not exactly, but it is pretty cool, and it does dole out a decent amount of damage. And it's also proccing the dominance passive and putting a shield up there. So definitely makes things a little interesting. So let's see if we can find this bounty. So we do see all the fire on the ground, and this is the the Hellfire Ring. The Ring of Fire that procs from the Hellfire Ring and is doing 200% weapon damage to enemies that are standing in it. And I think as you walk along the edges of the wall, you kind of block these the scarabs from coming over on top. So if you're leveling up, kind of stand on the outside edge and wait for them to come over. So as you can see, I've fulfilled the first thing here. I've killed 150 enemies. So now I just need to find the elite. It is pretty cool that the signature spells in RoS actually do a reasonable amount of damage. Before in D3-V, you just kind of ignore them. So as you can see, there's now a yellow arrow that's pointing us towards where the elite is, and if you go on the map, a little circle appears that tells you where to go. So I'm not one to really skip too much. I like killing monsters one way or another, even if you don't have to. Even if they're not part of the bounty or part of the quest or whatever you're on, I like to take them all out. I do like to kind of herd them up and gather them together and bring them all down and rain down some meteors.
Need more time.
Okay, so here's our bounty. So you can see here especially, we can use our signature spell to refill up our AP well. Fired out a bunch of meteors and there we go. And our bounty is complete. Come on, teleport back, here we go. So we now have one of the 5 bounties done. I'll leave it to your imagination what doing 4 more will be like. But when you do get your 4th bounty, you'll get your Heraldric cash and experience and gold for going through that trouble. Caches are pretty interesting because they will contain gold, gems, rare items, obviously a chance for legendary, and also as you go through each of the bounties, you'll get rift fragments, and those rift fragments are what you'll use to open up your Nephilim rift. And you also get somewhere between 40 and 50 blood shards, and you can use those blood shards to gamble on rare items.
Anything could happen.
You go up to Katala, and you can choose weapons, armor, or jewelry here, and you're essentially gambling on rare drops with the possibility of there being a legendary item, of course. So yeah, this Lightning Meteor build is one that I use on the low MPs. I'm not saying it's the best or the most efficient. There are lots of different permutations depending on the active and passive abilities that you use. That's one of the great things about the game right now, is there's so many different possibilities. The area that we ran through in Act 5 is really good for experience, so it's great when you're leveling your character up from 60 to 70. If you don't want to play the acts that we've been playing for a long time, definitely go try to use that one. So just be on the lookout for specific gear that has these new affixes for either elemental damage or for specific spells like Meteor or Electrocute, and it'll just make the build that more powerful. So go out there, have fun, and we will see you around. Cheers.